everybody back to the Insider Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hernandez. As always, we got to talk about our 2-0 win against Atlanta United at home on Saturday. A Marco Reus magical debut, a goal, and an assist for that one to give us the 3 points. We're going to talk about our thoughts and opinions about that game, what this could mean for Marco Reus for the remainder of the season, and just for the team in general. So we'll talk about that, give our thoughts and opinions. And of course, we have some Galaxy news, some player updates, Ventura County updates, and then of course we have our preview against St. Louis, which is an early start time. I believe it's an 11:30 start here in the Pacific, time zone. But yeah, we're going to talk about that, give our preview about that. So it should be a good episode here. And of course, with me as always is my co-host LA Galaxy Central. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Obviously in a new background right now, which is really cool. Different location. I like it a lot. And yeah, I'm obviously very happy to be here. We found a good time that worked for us, so that was good too.
Yeah, new background for me too, at least for today. But still, yeah, it's good. I mean, how's Ohio treating you? How's the school life treating you? How's it been this week? Have you got to explore, do anything fun, or how's it been?
Yeah, definitely. I got to meet some new people, go around a little bit, which was really cool. It's definitely cool to change scenery too. Like I've been in California a long time, and obviously like I'll miss it. I grew up there, but it's really cool to make the change, honestly.
Yeah, I bet so. And of course, like I told you, man, like hopefully you have all the success this semester. You pass all your classes, and you have a good time out there. So hopefully everything goes well for you. But speaking of everything going well, though, obviously, like I mentioned, we got a 2-0 win against Atlanta United on Saturday, which was a pretty big night in terms of a lot of things. Of course, like I mentioned, Marco Reus was his debut was that day, and just in general for a lot of like positive things that day that happened. I mean, the list can go on. I mean, the Galaxy got their 400th win all time. 10 million fans at Dignity Health Sports Park. I mean, so many things happened that week that we can just talk about for that night. But let's talk about, I guess, the game that happened, the performance on the field. Of course, like I said, 2-0. To start it off, 0-0 at the first half. Both teams were struggling a little bit. I mean, I think offensively, the Galaxy weren't 100% there. You can say Atlanta wasn't there offensively either. They even got 2 offsides got called on them. So they didn't get those goals that they scored on because of offsides. And then seemingly in the second half, once we made some changes, that's when it sort of clicked. With Marco Reus coming in, with Miguel Berry coming in, and I believe Gaston Brugman coming in as well. That also just changed the complexity of the game. We ended up getting the two goals. We ended up getting the 3 points. And I mean, like I said, a lot of things happened in that one, and everything well in that game. So, how'd you feel about the performance? What were your thoughts about it? And break it down from you.
Yeah, obviously a much better weekend for my teams than last weekend was when the Galaxy lost 3-1 to the Sounders and Napoli lost 3-0 to a Serie B team. Obviously, that was very rough, but yeah, definitely a bounce back weekend for me this weekend. That started with the Galaxy picking up a 2-0 win. Like you said, in the first half, I feel like it was a little bit flat. Both teams looked kind of poor. I mean, I feel like Atlanta United didn't really have that much quality on the field, and we had the better team, so we should have taken advantage of them. But yeah, just overall, like Greg Vanny made the right subs in the second half, which I think gave this team a big offensive boost, so that was really good. And yeah, obviously they made a massive impact, right? Marco Reus, a goal and assist on his debut. You can't really ask for much more. Obviously another missed penalty, which I mean, with this season, it's like corner kicks and penalties. It's like it's always going to be a problem at this point, which I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm kind of running out of solutions to say like what we should do better with it at this point, but I mean, I don't really know. It's good it didn't come back to bite us, though, because when Joseph Pencil missed that penalty, I thought the game might end 0-0. But then to get that opening goal, I think that was just a huge relief for everybody. And then you got the second goal at home. You pretty much put it away. So the first half, we kind of struggled, but we made the right adjustments and thankfully got a win that we definitely needed to get.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the game, though, I mean, obviously, yeah, like there were some things that we could have done better. I think it was a little rusty in some sort of aspects. Well, maybe not rusty. It was just maybe more of the obviously being off for 2 weeks, maybe the connection wasn't entirely there, or maybe we were just, a little bit off, but not necessarily rusty. And like, I wouldn't say like it was like like we didn't know what we were doing out there, but it was more like, yeah, like I think not everything just clicked at the beginning. Obviously, offensively, it didn't really click. You mentioned the penalty. I mean, the penalty was really again, like that's another problem now that the Galaxy had is who's going to be our penalty taker, the amount of penalties that we've had, the different players who have taken them. At this point we don't even have an answer who that is. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it was a little bit slow and flat, like you said in the beginning. But then once the second half turns around, and once we make those adjustments, and when Marco Reus comes in, I mean, it really just changes everything, right? Like I think we looked a little bit more dangerous on there. We were starting to click. We were starting to make more of a connection and starting to get everything going for um, in the second half. It starts off with the Ricky Puig goal with the Marco Reus assist in the 76th minute, and then you had the Marco Reus goal to finish it off in the 82nd minute, I believe it was. So, I mean, yeah, it wasn't necessarily the best performance, but I think getting the win is the most important part, and it's something that the team needed. We even said it last week. The team needed to get this win to get on the right foot for these next 8 games, and really it was just no matter how we got it, it was going to motivate the team. And it seems like the team has good vibes right now. Everybody seems happy. Everybody seems like they're in a good spot, and obviously there's still a lot of work to be done once these with these next 7 games. But of course, at least in terms of this one, you got the job done. No matter how off it was in the beginning, but you got the job done to get the 3 points. How did you feel about I guess, Marco Reus debut? I mean, obviously, we knew that he wasn't going to necessarily start, but I don't know. Did you feel like there was going to be that much of an impact with Marco Reus coming in on the field? Like, obviously, I don't think people are surprised, but necessarily it's still a little bit surprising that he already made an instant impact.
Yeah, definitely. He was kind of a wild card for me, honestly. I didn't really know what to expect, like what his fitness level was at, what position he was going to play in the game, what he really had to offer. But I mean, yeah, obviously had a great debut with an assist, a goal, definitely what you wanted to see. You could say like he was a difference maker off the bench, which he definitely was. Like our offense was struggling a lot before he came on. And yeah, just a very good performance overall. I was very happy when we saw him, and I hope to see him possibly in the starting lineup next week.
That is an interesting conversation, I guess, because everybody's saying like, oh, he should probably start now. Um, and yeah, I mean, obviously, who knows if we'll see it right now? But I think this is what we wanted to see from Marco Reus, which was him coming off the bench, him making an impact, and he did it in the first game. And it's honestly what we, I guess, signed him up for. Obviously, I think he'll get a start at some point, but it's just a matter of, I guess, will it be against St. Louis or not? Obviously, I think, the argument could be that he has earned it. Like you mentioned it, if you have a good game and, and an impactful one, you deserve a start.
Well, I
So
have another
will
reason
Marco?
too, actually, but I'll share that later.
Okay. But yeah, but obviously, will he start? I think that'll be an interesting question, which I guess we can, talk about that in the preview. But still though, like Marco Reus, I mean, the impact that he had, I think, it was, and also in a sellout crowd, which everybody wanted to, see him and make that impact, and the fact that he did it. Um, I mean, I think it really turned the page on on this team in the sense on what this team could be capable of. And the fact is, like, we're still not like, I guess, 100% yet either. So it's just like, all right, once we are 100%, and now with Marco Reus in the building with the team, how much of that makes an impact? And I think that's what a lot of people are really excited about in terms of what this could lead to into into the season, and into the playoffs, and things like that.
I mean, look, if you want to add a negative to that, like you just said it yourself, like we're not at 100% yet. Well, I'm starting to kind of wonder, like, are we ever going to be at 100%? Because, like, after the League's Cup break, I kind of had the idea of, like, okay, Alde will be back, Joveljic will be back, Brugman should be fit to start. And the reality is like we had the same exact lineup we had before League's Cup and the lineup that got us out of League's Cup. So that was, like, kind of concerning to me. I still think the medical staff on this team is a massive problem. And yeah, it's pretty concerning, honestly. Like, I wanted these last 8 games to really be like a cohesion type of games where we get everybody together going into the playoffs with momentum. And like, look, that can maybe still happen. Like, look, after St. Louis, we have yet another 2 week break, which, I mean, you could say if that's good or not, there's probably both ways to it. Like, yes, we can get everybody back. You would hope so at that point. But also, like, will we have another rusty game? And that rusty game could come against our rivals too, who are right behind us. So, I mean, yeah, it's honestly, it's kind of a weird situation a little bit, but the fact that like we didn't have all our players back after League's Cup break, I think that's a little bit concerning for us. We still have a lot of talent on this roster, but still you want everybody available.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think in terms of the injuries, which obviously I was going to talk about injury updates later, but from what Greg Vanny said going into this game was that at least Joveljic was going to, possibly see some minutes during Atlanta. We didn't see that. That was a game day decision. We didn't see that, but he should be, good to go for St. Louis. So at least you're going to get Dejan back. But and then I think believe also with Garces that he might be integrated, going into St. Louis as well. Which, again, like that's a good thing. But to your point, like you said, it's like could we be a little bit rusty because those guys are going to come back on? Maybe not necessarily Garces because he's going to be a depth piece and coming off the bench if he comes on. But at least for Joveljic, how is he going to come back into the game, and how is he going to necessarily will he be his former self? What we saw before he got injured. So I think that that is a good question and something to think about. Brugman, I mean, honestly, I think the role for Brugman right now is interesting as well because I've always said, um, like in terms of whoever starts, whether it's Cerrillo or whether it's Brugman, I think, both ways it's a pretty good scenario because if you start Cerrillo, you get Brugman coming off the bench, but if you start Brugman, you get somebody like Cerrillo coming off the bench. So it's like I think regardless of the situation, both of those scenarios are good. But with Brugman, I think the chemistry between the midfield is probably where you want to have him start. But still, though, I think it's not that bad of a position, and I think the only one really that's more concerning is just Julian Alde, whether he comes back. Supposedly, he'll come back during for the LAFC game. But obviously that's yet to be determined, and we'll see about that. But and even then, John Nelson is still doing a pretty good job for filling in that role. So yeah, I mean, I still there's I guess that's kind of the thing. It's like it could be a concern that we're not 100%, but I think also you can look at it as in like, well, when we are 100%, and hopefully we do get to 100%, that's going to change a lot about this team, and we've even mentioned that before. So I think it's just a matter of how these injuries go in, or how these players come back and how they play. But still, though, it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Aude and Joveljic have been injured forever, honestly. Like, how long have they been injured for? I know Aude got hurt the July 4th game, El Trafico, and hasn't even come back since. And Joveljic probably was in, like, what, the middle of, not even the middle of July, because, like, I remember we played Colorado then and he wasn't available. So it was like, I mean, kind of around the same time as Aude, actually, like July 7th or something like that. Like, these guys have been out just a long time, honestly, and that's not. I mean, the team has held it down in a lot of areas, but still, that's not what you want to see in terms of injuries going into the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, still, like you got to get these guys back, but it's yeah. I mean, in terms of Joveljic, I guess it's just like how like he's probably the most important one right now. I mean, Julian now they guess he's important as well. I mean, how he comes back, but for Joveljic, he's the guy who's supposed to score goals for us, and he still is, I believe, the guy who has the most goals so far this season. So it's like we need our goal scorer, and so far, the striker position hasn't really been worked out. Like obviously, we put Paint still in the nine. It worked before going into Leagues Cup. It hasn't really worked much since after that. And then obviously Miguel Berry hasn't. If we start him, that's not going to help as much either. Maybe it could because you actually have a nine in there, but is he really going to get you those goals as a starter? No, probably not. So I think Joveljic right now is just probably the more like the biggest concern is like when he comes back, how is he going to be? Is he going to be productive? How many games is it going to be till he gets back to at least a little bit of what he was, before he got injured? So it's like, I don't know. It really is, it is interesting. And like you mentioned, we also have a break after St. Louis. So how is that going to affect the team as well?
Yeah, we haven't gotten a striker because we're waiting for a certain somebody, if you know who that is.
I mean, everybody was kind of saying that too. Like, that little certain someone, I don't know. We've talked about it last week, with the whole soccer talk. I mean, but still though, I mean, in terms of right now, because obviously that's not a option right now, but in terms of, right now we need Joveljic back because, Joveljic needs to come in and play and, score goals again. So I don't know how that's going to, um, you know, like again, if he comes back to what he was, I think that's going to be massive. Um, but right now we still gotta wait for him to come back on the field at least. So we'll see how that goes. Still though, you got to see Marco Reus at least come in here, and I think again it's such a big deal that he's with us, and I think everybody was excited for him to play and see him do the things that he did, and again. Um, to already make a production and a contribution so early and quick is just amazing. But I mean, again, it wasn't just only Marco Reus, obviously, but I think, we talk about offensively how it was started off slow. I think defensively it was also a pretty good game from us. And again, we'll talk about the players, but I think overall, defensively it was a pretty good night on us. A clean sheet. That everybody wants a clean sheet, and that's always going to be a big positive when that happens when you can shut out the opponent. But still, though, I mean, again, there was a lot of great things that just happened this night. I mean, a lot of things that for the organization with, like I mentioned, the 400th win, and for Galaxy for the first MLS team actually to get 400 wins. So, doing that, and then also getting the 10 million fans going into Dignity Health Sports Park for how long it's been open, and I think just again, I think overall there was just a vibe that night. Like everybody seemed to be in the right position, right time. Which I guess that's also a little question. Like what do you think about that? Because obviously, I look at this team, I see everybody's like kind of happy in a good positive manner. Everybody seems to be like on the same page at least, or at least mostly everybody seems to be on the same page. It's like do you kind of look at stuff like that, like how this team is just like interacting with each other and just how the vibes are within the team? Like, do you kind of look at that stuff and kind of think of like what this could be like for the rest of the season and things like that?
And I'll also say too, like the fact that we got 400 MLS wins and we had Klein in charge for 6 years is definitely really impressive for sure. But like, yeah, definitely right now the energy feels really good. I think a lot of the players connect with each other really well. That's definitely what you need in a team, right? That's what a lot of good teams have, and that's really good for building momentum towards the season. And yeah, it's definitely a really good thing. You can definitely tell that like, this is a group that really understands each other well. And hopefully when they get fully healthy at some point, the quality can just increase even more and the depth can get even that much better.
Some people say, like, I guess, like in terms of championship teams or things like that, it's just like you got to have the good chemistry, you got to have good connection. And a lot of people, like a lot of, I guess, former athletes in terms of sports, whenever they say they're on a championship team, they always say it feels like a family, feels like a brotherhood, or, whatever the case may be. And it kind of looks like, outside looking in, that's how it is for the Galaxy, that everybody seems to be connected, have a bond with each other, just seems to resonate off of each other and have the same energy, and ultimately they all want the same goal, and that's to win MLS Cup, and hopefully that this could kind of lead to that. But still, though, it's like I like the vibes going on with everybody, and not only just with the players, but also like the fans and the organization as a whole. Like everybody seems to be in a good spot right now and happy, and like obviously, like I mentioned, there's still a lot of work to be done. This isn't the end of it, but still, though, like in terms of like the vibes and the energy, like everything seems to be good right now and in a good spot. And I think if you're just in general a Galaxy fan or player, executive, whatever the case may be, you're in a good spot right now, and you're content with what this could be, going into this later stage of the season.
I mean, not even just the season, also going forward, right? Like, multiple seasons coming up in the future too with this management and this like sort of changing direction a little bit, this maybe changing club culture we're having a little bit. Like, I mean, under Klein, we definitely didn't see that at all. It felt like, very negative, kind of almost like, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, almost like it was centered around one person the whole time. Like it was Latin, it was Chicharito, everything revolved around them. They were like the earth, sun, and moon about this team, and like, nobody else was good and they got frustrated. It feels like this is actually more of a team effort, which I definitely wanted to see for a long time, and we didn't get that under Klein.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like it, because we say like Ricky Puig was, like I guess the guy to build around this team, but now it's not just necessarily Ricky Puig. It's Painstill, it's Peck, it's Yoshida, it's the young guys like Neo. It's like there's so many different pieces to this team where it's like it's not just on one player, and yeah, like it is the different motivation. It's like it's not about having one player and having them dominate every single time. It's about having a good team, a good culture around the players, and seemingly that's what everything has that right now, right? Like with the players and the team and the organization. So it's like again, it's good vibes right now, and I think winning obviously winning helps that a lot so much. Like if you keep winning, the vibes are just going to keep staying there and keep being there. And yeah, I mean, obviously if they keep winning, the vibes are going to be there. They're going to be more motivated to go after it. And I think you really saw that with this performance. And even if it wasn't the grandest performance and the grandest of results, it's like it felt bigger just because of everything that was going around. Like I don't like if you get what I mean, but it's just like yeah, everything just seemed to be a lot grander after this win. But obviously, it just seems like a lot more excitement going in for the rest of the season and for future seasons as well.
I'll actually add something that I just found out. So right now we're tied on points. We're tied for the most amount of points we've had since Keenan and Donovan were on the Galaxy in 2016. We're tied with 52 points, and they had that at the end of their season. And that's the most points we've had since they were on the Galaxy.
It's impressive in itself right there,
That's
right?
what time
So
we amassed these most points, yeah.
yeah, I mean, still though, pretty impressive to say the least, and still we got a bunch of games left. So it's like, yeah, I mean, again, it's just the vibes are there, man, and again, I don't want to like you know, have an illusion yet or say that like, oh, we're going all the way yet because it's just like, there's still a lot of good teams out there. There's still a lot of, things that we have to do, but you still feel this sort of energy, with this team. You still sort of feel this, confidence and hope and something that we haven't had for years. Even with those couple playoff appearances we had in 2019 and 2022, it's like, ah, sure, like it's good that we made the playoffs, but I don't think there was this really this like I don't know, this different energy. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to explain. It's just of how this team is going, but it's just like there is just something different with this team. But like, I don't know. It's just it's very hard to explain. I don't know if you feel that sort of same way.
I mean, I would say the 2022 team for the last like 10 to 12 games of the season kind of had that feeling. Like they were playing super well, connecting on all cylinders. They were playing really well, but I agree for the most part, teams before that, like you definitely didn't have the belief you'd have in this one at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for sure. But yeah, it's just like I don't know. It's very hard to explain, but there is that energy, within the players and everybody. So, yeah, it's just a different feeling. But yeah, I mean, speaking of players, I don't know if you want to talk about that, unless you had any other final points about the game.
No, we can talk about the players right now.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the players. Let's talk about the defense first. You had John McCarthy at goal. You had Mickey Yamane as your right back. Your center backs was Yoshida and Neal, and then you had John Nelson as your left back. So pretty standard defense. Almost your starting defense. So obviously, like I mentioned, there was a shutout. We end up getting the clean sheet and everything. And defensively, I think we had a really good game in this one. Like even if necessarily offense wasn't 100%, I think we still had a pretty good game defensively. And some of those players, especially Yoshida had a really good game in this one. For against Atlanta, but still though, like I think defensively as a whole, as a unit, we played very well. But what were your thoughts about the defense in this one, and how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, both the Japanese guys played amazing defensively. Honestly, they were so good. I mean, Yoshida's probably the best defender we've had since Yellow Van Damme, in my opinion. I mean, he truly is a top class professional, and you can tell why he's played in top five leagues for so many years. I mean, he's been great for us, honestly. And Yamane also put in another really solid performance. I mean, to go more on the negative side, I guess Jalen Neal kind of got cooked, honestly. I mean, I would say like yes, we got a clean sheet and it was good, but we probably got a clean sheet more because Atlanta United, let's be honest, they're kind of shit without Almada and Yakomakis. They don't really have that many good offensive players, so that's probably why we kept a clean sheet rather than we played that good. But yeah, those two guys definitely held it down. Jalen Neal, I did not like at all. I think he got kind of cooked, honestly. He just was pretty rough to me. And McCarthy in the first half was really bad. Always giving the ball to the other team. That was not very good. And John Nelson was very solid too. I was very happy with him, honestly. Like these last couple months where John Nelson has been in the lineup, he's almost made me forget we've had Audi, honestly. Like that's how really consistent he's been, and that's been good to see. But I mean, you could say it was a good defensive performance. And like, yes, we got the clean sheet, but also like I do think defensively, like we did make some mistakes, and also the opposition we were playing didn't really have that strong of attacking players to a point where maybe another team that maybe would have scored with the way we played that game.
I mean, fair enough. I mean, I can see that as well, but I mean, still though, I think it was still good performance that we needed for the defense. But yeah, but still though, it's like I think yeah, you're right. Yoshida had pretty good night. Mickey Yamane had a pretty good night. Neil, I mean, I think it was solid. I mean, LA Riot Squad gave him the man of the match, but other than that,
It's
like
his birthday though, that's probably why.
that too. He did turn 21, which, by the way, happy birthday to Jalen Neal and Yoshida. It was both of their birthdays, so the birthday center back duo got a win, as their gift. But still, though, I think Neal did okay, but still though, I think even if it wasn't the best of opponents, and obviously not having players like Yakumakis and Almada really does affect a team like Atlanta. I mean, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be affected if you'd had those two guys on your team? So, but still, though, I think defensively they still played good, and they still held up on their own, and a clean sheet at home is still something positive. But yeah, I mean, I guess I can see that if it was maybe an opponent that had more offensive threats and weapons, that yeah, they probably could have scored, maybe a goal or two. But still, though, I think you still got to be happy with at least getting that clean sheet overall. And still, though, there was still some good performances. It's not like we kind of lucked out of there or anything like that. Like I still think they did a good job in terms of those in terms of the performance in itself. Yeah. All right. Anything else about the defense, or do you want to move on into the midfield?
I mean, honestly, Yoshida was incredible. Like, he was just so good that game. I think he won just about every single duel. His tackles were really strong. He kept the backline organized. Like, I think Yoshida's the sole reason we did not concede a goal that game, and he really was, like, by far the best player out there for us defensively.
I saw a stat. Didn't he have like the second most minutes or something? Like not only in terms of like the Galaxy, like probably like, or I don't know what stat I saw that like he had like a. I mean, basically, like he's been available like almost every game, regardless. So it's just like we talked about this before, like the fact that he's like an Iron Man, for this team, and everybody was like saying like, when are we going to give this guy a break? When are we going to give him, an opportunity to rest up? It's like, do you want him? At this point, do we even want to rest him up? Like, I mean, he's been playing very well and is still very much available for his age, and it's pretty insane to say the least. But yeah, I mean, Yoshida still though in this game was like, he was really good in this one, and again, that just shows how much of a class of a player that he is, and how much of a experienced player he is, and just what he means to just the defense in general. So it's like, he's still balling it out even at his age, and in terms of just where he's at in the season right now. So I think that's something like you gotta, yeah, I mean, that's another really good positive thing to see from Maya Yoshida. And again, his birthday as well, turning 35, I believe it was. So it's like, yeah, like still pretty crazy in itself. But Yoshida, just what a performance from him, and obviously still a good player in his own right, and still going to keep playing at a pretty high level. Yeah. But yeah, anything else you want to say about the defense, or you want to move on into the midfield?
I mean, I can't agree with you with the fact that you called Jalen Neal solid. Like, I just didn't really see that overall. I think he was losing a lot of his matchups. He had some dangerous turnovers. I think, he was getting taken out of position a little bit. Like, for me, it was kind of more of a concerning performance a little bit.
I mean, it could have been concerning, but also I think it was just the fact that again, we kind of mentioned it. These guys haven't played in a couple weeks. It could have been a little off from some of these guys, but I don't think it was like, too concerning. I guess it's just like, yeah, maybe they weren't on top of their game, but still, though, like, I think he was, maybe I am being a little bit too more optimistic about Jalen Neal, but still, though, I think, I don't think like he really, at the end of the day, yeah, he's maybe did put us in some bad positions, but it didn't lead us to a goal or anything like that. So it's like, I don't know. Like to me, I think Jalen Neal did, okay. Like I don't think he did too bad, but still though, maybe it was an off day for him. So I don't know if it was necessarily, I don't know if I would judge him too much on this performance. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. All right. But anyways, yeah, I think we can go into the midfield. Let's talk about that. So, of course, starting midfield, you had Edwin Cerrillo, you had Ricky Puig and Mark Delgado in this one to start it all off. Yeah, obviously Ricky Puig gets his goal. Midfield, I don't think we necessarily, had too bad of a game overall either. But I mean, in terms of individual performances, I mean, how'd you feel about it? What were your thoughts about the midfield in general?
The midfield was pretty good for the most part. I will say Edwin Cerrillo was a little bit frustrating to watch because I feel like in the first half he just killed our attacks a lot. Like that's the difference between Brugman and Cerrillo for me is Brugman will make those line breaking passes that will help us penetrate and get forward. Meanwhile, Cerrillo would just pass backwards or sideways. Which I mean, they're two different types of players, right? That's why you brought them both into the team to complement each other a little bit. And I think sometimes maybe a game is better for Brugman to play, maybe sometimes it's better for Cerrillo to play. But I feel like this game, and we saw it once he came on, it was a lot better for Brugman to play. So I think Cerrillo just kind of wasn't it for this game. Kind of killed a bit of our attacks. I think Delgado did pretty solid for the most part. He looked like he had a lot of energy after the break, so that was good. It's definitely a guy that like you need to get going a little bit too, because like maybe a little bit before League's Cup break, he looked a little bit tired, just like the whole team. So that's good. You got him going. And then Ricky Puig had a good night too. Obviously, opening the scoring was really good. Had a little bit of incomplete passes a little bit, but like at the same time, like our offense definitely struggled a little bit too. So sometimes if they're not on the same page, that could happen. But I mean, overall, like Surreal still was solid defensively, though. I just think offensively he slowed our attack down a little bit, but he did his job well, so I can't fault him too much. So overall, for the midfield, I'd say it was a solid night overall. They probably won the battle in the midfield, and yeah, it's definitely what you need to do, especially at home.
I mean, definitely. And I think, you know, and you're right about Surreal and Brugman. It's like two different players because it's just like, Brugman does like, I mean, they're both, I guess, defensive midfielders, but Brugman still has this sort of offensive side to him with, like you said, the breaking lines and, and these passes. And then Surreal's just not necessarily, doesn't really have that ability or as much as Brugman does. So it's like, yeah, they're two different players, which I think it is, and this is why I always say it's just like it is like a win-win scenario in terms of who starts. It's like sure, like maybe if Surreal doesn't necessarily give you much offensively in the beginning, you could put in Brugman to give you that offensive, side, and then you clearly saw it in this game. Once he went on, you got helped into the the build up into those two goals. So it's like still though, it just really depends on how I guess you want to set the tone. Like you said, like which player is really the player that you want to start in some certain games. Like if you want to go out already, getting the score very early on, I think you could put Brugman in. If you kind of want to just play it out and sort of maybe tactically, maybe more of a tactical game, you put more Edwin Cerrillo. But still, though, I mean, Edwin Cerrillo was still pretty solid on the night. Mark Delgado was also good, and like you said, getting him going is important as well because he's just sort of, he's that guy who's, I guess you could say, almost like the engine of the midfield, right? So it's like if he gets it going, that's everything else is gonna get it going. And then Ricky Puig, of course, getting his goal. I don't think he didn't get the assist on Royce's goal, but still opens the scoring a banger of a goal with Marco Reus giving him that assist. And yeah, I mean, obviously the midfield didn't necessarily lose in this match either, so it's like I think it was a good night for them as well. So overall, I think everything complements it well with each other.
Yeah, I mean, you said having Surreal and Brugman on the same team is a win-win no matter what. Well, I think like it's a win-win, but it also can be a lose-lose depending on the situation. Like I think they're very situational type of players, like you said. Like I think like at home, for example, like you should probably start Brugman, be a little bit more offensively, be a little more aggressive going forward, and like maybe not play as much more defense. But maybe on the road, maybe at times it will be better to play Surreal because he is actually better defensively than Brugman is, and maybe he can just kind of neutralize the game a little bit, keep it close, keep it competitive, and then maybe we can get one or two past and get out with a MLS road win, which is always difficult to get. But like I don't know, like if you play him in the wrong situations, like I don't know, it also could be a lose-lose. Like let's say you played Cerrillo that entire game when it was 0-0 in like the 75th minute. It's like, well, that would not have been very good for us because our offense looked very bad at that point. But I also think there's points where it's like if you played Brugman, like let's say for example, when we were up like 1-0 in Real Salt Lake, which was going to be a massive win for us and ended up being a massive win, but like it possibly could not have if we lost that game, like, or at least tied it. Like if Brugman was playing like in that game, like I think he would be a lot worse because he's not as good defensively and RSL pushing everybody forward, might find a way to get a goal a little easier. So I think it kind of depends on like what situation you're in at what point in the game. And obviously that's on Greg Van to figure that out. And whatever point we're at in the game is the change that needs to happen. And this weekend, he definitely got it right.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for sure. And I think, for Greg Vanny, yeah, he's got to figure that out. And like, maybe in terms of this game, maybe that's what you did want Cerrillo for, because obviously, like we mentioned, 2 weeks off, maybe it was a safer choice to put Cerrillo in at the start. But maybe like, for example, LAFC, maybe you put, once we go up against them, you might want to put Brugman in because that's going to be more of a high scoring game and you definitely need more offensive power to keep up with a team like LAFC, like and you're right, like it's just a matter of who what each game calls for, I guess, and what's the best scenario. And I think, yeah, it could be a lose-lose situation, but but it could only be a lose-lose situation if Greg Vanny doesn't necessarily put him in the right position or uses it in the wrong scenario. But I think Greg Vanny knows which scenario to put each player in, and clearly this one you saw that it was kind of the right scenario, right? Having starting off Cerrillo maybe a bit more defensively because maybe there wasn't much connection or a little bit of rustiness in this game, and then once Brugman came on, you got to see we got those two goals. So it's like there is I think, but in this game it was used correctly. So it is just a matter of what scenario is best for each opponent. So, but in terms of this one, yeah, definitely we got one. We got it right. So, But I mean, I still think it's regardless. I still think it's a win-win situation. Like, I mean, that's what depth is, right? Like, if you have one player out and the other player can go in and still give you a good performance, it's like that's a good thing, right? So it's like I think that's just goes to show how the depth is with this team and how much it changed the season. So yeah, I mean, but regardless though, in terms of Cerrillo, he still played very well or solid at least.
Yeah, so for the starting lineup, like if both guys are fully healthy, I probably would say that Brugman is the better fit for this team because of the chemistry he has with Delgado and Ricky Puig, and the fact that he's able to break lines more. I think that's very important for a defensive midfielder because they're getting the ball deep. Obviously, Cerrillo has his own qualities too that can help the team a lot, but I think fully healthy, you'd probably want a guy like Brugman in there because maybe he can make more of a difference in terms of winning us a match.
But yeah, I mean, obviously though, in terms of Brugman, I think yeah, you're right. Like I think it's just much more of a better fit because when you look at 2022, when you had Brugman and you had Delgado and you had Puig, like all those three guys on the same field is just like it's a difference maker, and I think the chemistry wise is just so much better. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I still think it can get to that once all those three guys are on the field and those guys are going to click together and just like everything just so works well with them. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with you that Brooklyn will probably be much better of a fit starting and like for more of our full potential, definitely for sure. Yeah. But anything else you want to say about the midfield before we move on?
Pretty solid night overall. I was very happy with it.
So let's go into the offense, I guess. Let's talk about for your starting offense, you had Gabriel Peck, you had Joseph Paintstill, and then you also had Diego Fagundes to start this off. And again, when we talked about the offense in the beginning, necessarily wasn't the best night. I think in terms of that front three, I don't think Peck had a kind of a rough night. Paintstill, didn't look as sharp either. Like I don't know, it just didn't necessarily wasn't completely there for the offense in the beginning until once we made those changes. But I mean, how would you rate the offense? I mean, we still end up getting two goals, but in this it wasn't necessarily that we got it from the starting offense. But how'd you feel about the offense overall?
I mean, I will say for the offense though, they did create a lot of chances. They just didn't finish them. Like in the first half, even Gabriel Peck had a chance, hit it right at Guzan. In the second half, Diego Fagundes got in behind, he hit it at Guzan. We had a penalty kick. Obviously, we missed that. So that's like three, goals right there that should be goals. And then with the other two, we could have scored 5 goals if we were just more clinical. So I don't think like the offense was like a problem in general. I think our finishing was more of a problem. And I would just say too, like, I mean, I hate to bring it up, but like, Ricky Puig got a goal. I mean, Gabriel Pet got an assist. Marco Reus got a goal and assist. I mean, where is Joseph Pencil in the mix? Like, he's a DP player too. I mean, sometimes that's kind of my issue with him. Is he only like comes and goes sometimes, and like I don't know. He was super disappointing. Honestly, I was expecting a big game from him coming off a break, a guy that probably needs a break after playing a lot of games the last like year or so, but he was definitely disappointing. Gabriel Peck had a kind of a disappointing night too, a little bit, but he still got an assist, so like at least you could say he did something, but yeah, I don't know. I will definitely say though for the offense, like it looked a lot better when we brought on a number nine. Like I think this team does need to play with a number nine. Like the Joseph Pansel false nine thing, yeah, it worked for 2 games against Colorado and Portland, and I'll admit those were very impressive wins against good teams. So that was like, I thought it might like be something we could go forward with, but I don't know. Like when you see it like on the road especially, and like even at home at times, it's like, is it really like going to be a thing we want to go to that often? Probably not in my opinion. But I mean, my main point is though, is like I don't think the offense was a problem because they were creating chances. They just were not that clinical. But like the fact that we were not that clinical and scored 2 goals tells you that we have a lot of offensive quality on this team and still some waiting to come back in Jovic and hopefully Lewandowski someday.
We're just kind of manifesting the Lewandowski stuff, right? Yeah.
Could
But
happen. Like the more I hear about it, like it feels like more of a real thing.
I mean, still, it was reported, so it's like there's still a good chance, and it seems like Lewandowski kind of has some interest coming over here. But again, like I guess that's just yet to be determined. But still, though, manifesting it right, kind of, what's it called? Manifest that, and hopefully it'll happen. But still, though, in terms of the offense, I think for the night, yeah, I mean, there was a bit of disappointment from Gabriel Peck, from Paint still a little bit. And yeah, you're right, Gabriel Peck still got an assist, but I still think he had a little bit of a rough night. And then, yeah, Paint still is just like, again, it's just kind of a come and go situation for him. It's like, again, we're glad that we got the win and, others contributed, but at the same time, it's like we can't just, have him fly under the radar and have others, kind of contribute it. And it's not to say that he hasn't contributed or hasn't given us production because he has, but it's just a matter of, hey, Like if one of these guys don't necessarily have a good performance or a good night, we need you to step up. It just can't necessarily be all on them. And again, he's still producing, still contributing in some sort of way, but still though, there's got to be some moments where, and you mentioned it, yourself, like he's got to be the more of the, the clinical winger and, get us some goals and think, and, get us production. And if you're not that, and you're not going to do that, like, it's a little bit of a concern. Is it like a red flag or panic mode? Like no, but it's still like we got to see a little more from Payne still, and again, it could be a lot of things, but still, I think we got to see a little bit more from him.
And that penalty was very poor too. It looked like a player that was kind of lacking confidence. It was not a great penalty.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you miss a penalty, it's not a good penalty, and I think not to give too much credit to Guzan, but I think he still read him pretty good, like and he knew where Painstill was going to shoot, and again, like he Painstill, if he's got to make those moments count, like he just has to do a little bit better. But again, I don't think anybody's giving up faith on him, but I think some people just still gotta I guess there's still some questions for Joseph Painstill on whether he can be back to what he was in the first, in the beginning of the season, because he hasn't necessarily been a guy who's been obviously he's still a game changer, but he still hasn't had those game changing moments, if that makes sense. Like we've seen Peck already do a bunch of game changing moments, and Ricky Pooch have those moments, and obviously Marco Reus in his debut had a game changing moment. So it's like now it's the matter of when is Joseph Paint still going to have those game changing moments for him and for himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like before League's Cup, he did have that goal against Portland that put us up 3-1. So I'm still gonna give him credit for that. That was an absolutely massive goal against the Portland team that was on fire. So I'll give him that. But like, other than that, and like maybe the Colorado game where he had a goal and an assist, but they were kind of easy a little bit to other players. Like, yeah, like until like the beginning of the season to that point, like we really haven't gotten that much out of him. And as a DP winger, if you're not getting like game-changing moments, then they're not living up to what they should be, in my opinion.
I mean, still though, do I think it's like a panic mode situation with Paint still?
I'm not saying it's
No,
panic, but like still, I think we need to see a bit more though.
no, I agree with that, but I'm just saying like it's like what I mean. It's like, is he like? Are we starting to begin that he's not worth the DP money? I don't know if I go that far yet. I mean, he still has a lot of contributions this season, but it's just right now, it's just like we haven't seen those game changing factors from him, I guess, in a while. Like, yeah, the Portland game, like that was definitely game changing performance and the game changing, factors that he put into that. So it's just a matter of when is he going to bring those back into his play. And again, I don't know what's up with him. Like, I know he used the excuse of, or the reasonings of like, he's played a lot of games and things like that, but he's gotten some rest. I mean, we've got a couple weeks break, before this game, and then we're gonna have another break coming up soon. So it's like, at this point, it's like there's not much reason to have Joseph Paint to give Joseph Paint so why he's not performing the way he should be. But still, though, I think he's still a good player. I still think he contributes a lot, and still though, I think it's just a matter of when he's gonna click it, and I don't know if we will see it, but still though, like we just got to see a little more from him for sure. Yeah. All right. Anything else about the offense, or do you want to talk a little bit about the subs? Because the subs definitely had a good factor in this game.
Yeah, we can go to the subs right now.
All right, let's talk about the subs then. All right, subs. Obviously, we already talked about it already. Marco Reus being one of those guys, having the goal and the assist. Of course, he was one of those guys that came on. Miguel Berry came on. Gaston Brugman came on. Guys that we've already talked about. Saying that those guys were pretty big factors going into this game. I believe Cuevas came on at some point in the end of the game as well. But yeah, obviously the subs had a big night in terms of it. It definitely changed the factor of the game and the way the game went. But how'd you feel about the subs and or just the management in general? How'd you feel about it?
I think the subs are great, right? Bringing Brugman back into the mix absolutely was huge for the Galaxy. I think that was a change that needed to happen. He was making a lot of passes forward, and it's exactly what that game needed, and that really helped us a lot. And obviously, I think the guy we all want to talk about, Marco Reus off the bench, I mean, absolutely incredible, right? He had a nice layoff to Ricky Pooch for their first goal, and that was a great strike to put us in the lead, so that was really good. Then the second goal was very well taken too, hitting at Guzan, he makes the save, follows it off the rebound, puts it in. I mean, that's really good, a goal and assist in like 15 minutes, you'd love to see that, definitely. And I think on the ball too, he looked very composed, he looked very organized, considering it's his first game with the team too, with how organized he looked and how like much of an understanding he had. He's a very smart player, you could tell. Obviously, play at a very high level, and yeah, definitely very happy with how he played. That's the debut I think everybody wanted to see, and I'm very glad we got that. And hopefully, we can continue to get that.
I mean, the people who went to that game got their money's worth, right? Like, I mean, seeing Marco Reus and his debut and what he did. But obviously, I think just in general the subs did good. Like once he came on, once Brugman, and even Miguel Berry. Like once Miguel Berry came on, the team looked a little bit better. It looked like you mentioned, like we needed a number nine. I think having a number nine, we play a little bit better. And even there was moments where Miguel Berry looked threatening, which is not something would say too often in terms of Miguel Berry. But even then, he had some moments where he could have done something right. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the subs, like it's just great, and again, Marco Reus is just the headline of the story with how he did, and with his goal and the assist, and again, it's pretty crazy that he got that on his debut and already being a big factor, and with only having like a week to train with the team, like you mentioned, it's just so crazy. Like it's crazy, man. Like it really is. It's crazy to see that a player like that is with us, and in just doing what he's doing, and it was crazy because like a lot of people were kind of like it's funny because like I saw a lot of like European like I guess like news and stuff like that talking about Marco Reus's debut, and some people were already talking about bad about the MLS and things like that, but at the same time it's just like, man, who cares? Like we got Marco Reus. It's like he's doing his thing, and he's still gonna keep doing his thing with the Galaxy, and just hope that we get to see more from him, and maybe even possibly start this Sunday. But still, though, like him and everybody else that came on just was a big factor for getting us the win this week.
You see, that's kind of weird. I was like a big European soccer fan myself. Obviously, when people talk about like MLS like that, like, oh, Marco Reus is doing good, like the league must be shit, or oh, Messi's doing this, Suarez is doing that. Whatever big name you want to throw out there, it's like, I mean, yeah, they're doing it in this league at this point in their career, but like they also did it in Europe at that point, not at this point in their career, but like at their peak too. So it's like they're clearly quality players. Like, sure, like they probably don't have the same athleticism they used to have, the same motor, but like you know what they say, class is always permanent, right? So it's like you shouldn't really make fun of the league because these guys are still, high level players at this point in their career. It's like these guys have always been able to show at every single level that they can have a lot of production with any team in any competition.
I mean, yeah, definitely for sure, and maybe like Europeans don't necessarily see it because maybe they don't really watch MLS, but just in general, like people sort of forget that this is a very physical league. Like it gets physical at some points, and like even some players who were great in Europe don't necessarily pan out because of the physicality or other aspects of MLS. Like MLS is still a kind of, I don't want to say difficult league or anything like that, but it's just like, there's some difficulties that come with the league. And the fact that a player is still killing it in a league like MLS is still pretty impressive. And like you mentioned, like this isn't like Marco Reus barely, like this is something new for Marco Reus. Like he's been doing it his whole career in the Bundesliga and some of the top competitions. And I mean, in Europe, I mean, think about it this way. The last game he played was the Champions League final. It's like, it's like, it's like he was clearly still playing at a good level, and now that he's in MLS, it's like sure maybe it's just like maybe it's not the same as Europe. Obviously, it's not the same as Europe, but it's just like like you said, it's like class is permanent. It's like there's still going to be he's still going to contribute in any sort of way. It's not necessarily an indictment on the league. It's more of how good Marco Reus has played and how well he's adapted so quickly, and not only just him, but also a lot of other players that come into this league and somehow adapt to the league as well.
Speaking of other players that might come into this league, like if Lewandowski actually came to MLS with the Galaxy at some point in his career, he would be an absolute hit, honestly, when you look at how Suarez has done it for Miami too and how Zlatan did with us. Like, I think it's Suarez came in. No, sorry. Fuck off. Here, can I re-say that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You can make sure to edit that part out. You gotta take notes, dude. You gotta take notes to what to edit out. Yeah, so if Lewandowski came into MLS, honestly, with this Galaxy team at any point in his career, I feel like he would do really good when you look at other guys too, like Suarez, like Zlatan with us, like how they transferred over into this league. I think he would transfer over really well and have a lot of production with us too, especially with Marco Reus being his former teammate at Dortmund. I feel like they would form a great chemistry, and that'd be really fun for the league and really fun for us too. I mean, I know we said we were like kind of manifesting it earlier, but I mean, like you can put it this way, like Lewandowski is getting towards the end of his career, And Gabriel Peck, with the season he's had, like you would need a DP spot to sign him. Obviously, he's gonna be a target for a lot of teams, I can tell. So it's like, if those two things they could work out in some sort of way, it's like, it could be possible. But I mean, that's for the future. Obviously, we've seen some reports recently that we want to get him next year, but I mean, it'd be exciting either way. But yeah, definitely like class is permanent and it can definitely transfer over to any single league if the player still has a lot to give.
I mean, definitely for sure. And again, like there's a lot of players that do like have success in MLS, and some don't. Like I mean, you look at you know Shaqiri with Chicago Fire. Like he was a good player, but he didn't really pan out in MLS, and they terminated his contract, right? So it's like it's still though it's just like there's a lot of good players out there, like and especially players like a Royce or Lewandowski or Suarez, Messi, like whoever the case may be, like they can still offer a lot. And the fact that they're in this league and they're still performing here, and it's still great to see. And I think I guess it just shows more growth of the league as well. Like even then, it's like people say it's like, oh, it's like it's a retirement league or anything like that because Marco Royce came here. It's like, does it really matter? It's like you still get a player like Marco Reus to your league. It's just like that still helps the growth of the sport. It helps the viewership, not only here in the U.S. but also in other parts of the world possibly. And it's just like it's like it's still a good thing to have. It's like, sure, are we past the point where a player like that is like a maybe like a maybe like I mean, the fact that he's not even on a DP contract is insane as well. But it's like, are we past the point like where maybe some of these players aren't DP worthy? But it's like, sure, maybe, but it's like still though, it's like these guys being in your league is still a good thing, and it's always going to be a good thing to have in your league. And the fact that we got Marco Royce on our team and the contract that he has is just it's incredible, and I think it's not only just good for us, but it's just good for I think like just in general, soccer in the U.S. as well. So it's just like it's still crazy to see that what he did this week is just going to be like a glimpse of what could possibly be for the rest of this season and for whenever for next season as well. Okay. But anything else you want to say about the players? Any other thoughts you want to say before we move on?
Yeah, the Bergman set was definitely great, and Marco Reus had an incredible debut, so that was very good to see.
All right, for sure. Yeah, I mean, again, good night overall for the organization, for the club. Like we've mentioned already, just the 400 wins, the 10 million, spectators at Dignity Health Sports Park since its opening. The win, Marco Royce. It's just like good vibes for that night. Definitely felt a little bit different, and hopefully, that those vibes carry on for the rest of the season. So hopefully that everything just goes good for us in terms of that. But anyways, yeah, that was Atlanta 2-0 win at Dignity Hill Sports Park on Saturday. And yeah, now we got another game with St. Louis this week. But before we get into St. Louis, let's talk about, I guess, some Galaxy news. Like I mentioned before, during the preview or during the recap, player injury updates. Dejan Joveljic was a game time decision. Is probably going to be available for this week against St. Louis. Same thing with Garces, being available for this week against St. Louis. And then in terms of Julian Aude, still might be a little while. Maybe for LAFC we'll get him back. So, of course, we still got some players on the injury list, and hopefully, they're back sooner than later. And obviously we got to keep an eye out on those guys and how they are. Hopefully they return soon and could be, what they were before they were injured. So hopefully that is the case. Yeah, in terms of that was injuries. Ventura County updates. They got a 3-1 win over the weekend, at home. I forgot who they played, over the weekend, but, I don't know if you got to catch up on that game, but still a 3-1 victory for Ventura County is a good thing for the boys, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't get to watch the game, but I know they played the Real Monarchs, which is Salt Lake's affiliate team.
Yeah. Do we have a standings update for Ventura County? I don't know what place they're at right now.
Yeah, neither do I, honestly.
I mean, I haven't checked. I don't know if you want to check, but still though, Ventura County getting a 3-1, win over the weekend is something that you want to see from the boys. I believe Tucker Lepley scored the third goal, if I saw correctly. But still though, great win for the boys, great win for Ventura County, and especially with, like how we mentioned before, having to lose a lot of players, whether it's on loan or some of those guys being, not with the Galaxy anymore. It's just like still though, they got a win. They got a pretty good win this weekend. So good for the boys.
Yeah, they're in third place right now with 14 teams in the conference, so they're doing pretty well right now. Good position.
Hey, definitely a good position. I don't again don't really watch too much MLS Next Pro, which I mean I should in terms of getting content out I guess for Ventura County, but still third place in the Western Conference. I mean you can't beat that, right? So obviously that's a it's a good thing for them. So hopefully they continue that and they make a push for those playoffs. That'll be a good thing for them as well. But yeah, that's in terms of Ventura County updates. I don't know if I'm missing anything else important from the Galaxy News part, unless you had anything to add.
I mean, there was another report from an account about Lewandowski, but we already went over that though. And it's kind of the same situation, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Like another outlet reported it.
Yeah, definitely interesting. And again, manifesting it, man. Manifesting that could possibly happen. There
It'd be
was a
so good.
Mikovic update. Yeah, oh yeah, I mean he would be freaking great. But there was a little bit of a Mikovic update. Apparently, he might be available on the bench for St. Louis. Obviously, there was a little bit of a you know just this whole situation of him possibly wanting to transfer and things like that, and just hopefully everything's sorted out with Mikovic because I believe Brady Scott was the backup keeper for the past game if I recall. But yeah, I mean Mikovic. Hopefully that that saga ends. Like, I mean, how do you? I mean, I guess we've already talked about Mikovic, but like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think that kind of affects the team a little bit with Mikovic having all these, I guess these transfer, situation that he wants?
I mean, no, because it's its own personal problem. I don't think that's really going to affect their group, and he's not enough of an influential player for us right now to the point where like that's going to be much of a distraction for the team on the field.
Yeah, I guess so. But hopefully everything works out with Mikovic, and hopefully he's back at least on the bench, and maybe everything gets sorted out with him. But yeah, I mean, hopefully everything goes well with Mikovic. But yeah, we'll see about that one. But yeah, that was Galaxy News, Ventura County updates, and I guess we can talk about St. Louis this weekend. So St. Louis, we got them this Sunday, very early kickoff for the team. Last time we faced St. Louis, it was a 3-3 thriller at home, which that day we had some struggles off set pieces, but we still had pretty good resilience for that team or for that night, and for the team to show that. And yeah, obviously it was a thriller that night. Was there? I think we were both there in person to watch that game. And yeah, obviously now we fast forward. These teams are in different states right now, obviously compared to what that was in the beginning of the season. So yeah, I mean obviously we have St. Louis at St. Louis, and last year we tied over there. And I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't know if you're going to agree with me or not. And if you don't, I think it's very understandable. But I think getting just a result, like, a result, like a point on the road would be a pretty big deal for the Galaxy. I think, with the early start time for them and them having to, it'll be 1:30 over there, but it'll be 11:30 here in the Pacific time. They're going to be used to that time. It's just like there's so many things that go into that. And, obviously St. Louis have a good crowd and everything like that. And going on the road is just, never easy to go play. But I think for me, a result could possibly be a good thing for the Galaxy. But obviously, you always got to go for the win. And I think with where they're at right now, they can go and get the win. But I don't know how you feel about the game or necessarily how they should approach this one. But what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, definitely don't agree with the fact that we should, settle for a draw at all. I mean, St. Louis is one of the worst teams in the Western Conference this year. I will admit they did have a really good summer window. They brought in a lot of new players, even a DP. They had a pretty decent Leagues Cup, and they tied 4-4 against Portland, which was a crazy game. So clearly, they're that type of team that is going to try to score a lot, but it could also leave a lot of space in behind. And we even saw that earlier this year with what you said earlier, the 3-3 draw. Absolutely incredible game, by the way. I know I come on here a lot complaining about draws like, oh, it's boring, it's not good, but that was one of those draws, honestly, earlier in the season where it's like, okay, you know what, fair enough. That was an absolutely incredible game. So, I mean, if we get another thriller like that would definitely be really nerve-wracking, but also really fun to watch. So, but yeah, going on the road, I mean, yeah, definitely difficult for sure against St. Louis, but I don't know, man, honestly. I mean, you forgot to mention Ricky Puch is suspended for this game, so that's kind of why I wanted to see Royce actually start this game, because he can play kind of that center forward 10 role for us really well. And honestly, I'll say this, like, look, you never want Ricky Pooch suspended at all, like at any sort of time, but like if there's a game for him to miss, I feel like this St. Louis game is absolutely the perfect one for him to miss. In the three games versus them, he's struggled a lot. I don't even think he scored versus them. I don't even know if he's assisted versus them. And he's definitely turned over the ball a lot versus them. So I think him missing this game could be a really good thing if you get like Marco Reus in there, who maybe has a better understanding of their system, a little more composed. That could help us a lot. I'll also say for this game, I mean, Joseph Pencil, dude, like, you have to show up. Like, you absolutely have to show up for this game. I mean, without Ricky Pooch on the field, Gabriel Peck also has to show up, but Joseph Pencil especially does. He played well versus St. Louis earlier in the year. I think he had a goal and an assist, which was really good, or I think maybe just been a goal, but I remember he got in behind a lot, and that was super important for us. And if he can get in behind again, their back line, and you have a guy like Marco Reus finding them, that could create a lot of opportunities for us. And I still feel like St. Louis, like, yeah, they have some good pieces, but like, I don't know. I feel like, going into a 2 week break, like, we need to get a win. We've already got enough losses before breaks, like in Chicago, against Seattle. Like, it's time to go into a break on a positive note. And like going into that 2 week break, I think we need some momentum, and there's a good chance we have an opportunity to get some maybe. So I wouldn't take a tie. I think we should go for the win for sure.
I mean, obviously you got to go for the win, and I think this team is capable of going for the win. The only reason why I'm not saying we should go in for the tie, but I think it wouldn't be a bad result if we got one. I'm saying that's what I'm saying. Like obviously, like I don't think we should go for the tie, but like obviously go for the win. And I think this team is very much capable to going win on the road because I mean they've done it before. And like you mentioned, St. Louis right now is a much different team than what they were in the beginning, but still though, it's like I think like if they tie because of the circumstances of the early start and and obviously the Ricky Push thing just went by me. I even forgot he got suspended, but it's just like still though, it's like like without Ricky Puig and things like that. And St. Louis is also a pretty, kind of even though we only played there once, but it's like it's still kind of a tough place to go play at. It's just like it's like I don't know, but I think definitely they should go for the win. I think definitely having Marco Reus now possibly starting is a really big thing, and to get him going is going to be a pretty big factor. And yeah, it also depends on the other players too. Does Paintsel step up? Does Gabriel Peck step up in this one, and how, and as well as does Jovic play in this game? Does he play in this game or not? Does he start? Does he come off the bench? What's his impact as well? So it's like there's a lot of other factors as well. So obviously go for the win, but I'm just saying like maybe the tie isn't the worst result if we manage to get that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a fair point too, because points on the road in MLS definitely are pretty difficult to get. But as for Jovic, like, yeah, we definitely need to see him this game making some sort of impact. And just from the start in general, I want to see us playing with the number 9. I don't want to see Paintsel playing there again, at least for right now. Like, if you have to go with Miguel Berry for the first part, then I mean, go with it. If you want to give Jovic a run and then take him out, I mean, either way, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, we definitely need to start this game with a 9. I don't want to see Paintsel as striker again, at least for right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it could be an interesting factor of how might that work with with Marco Reus being on the field and if he gets the start because obviously and I think there's a lot of different scenarios that Greg Vanny could go into that. Maybe you don't start Marco Reus. Maybe you put Fagundes at the 10 position or maybe I don't know. There's just so many different ways that we can go about it on this one. In terms of St. Louis, it's still gonna be a difficult in terms of just the fact that it's a away game, but yeah, I mean, I still think the team is capable of getting 3 points on the road, and if they do get 3 points on the road, that's massive, especially with the fact that, it's still pretty tight up in the West, even though we got like we're a few points up against LAFC, they still have three, they still have 3 games on hand, I think even more, but it's just like, it's still though, we just gotta, we still gotta find our ways to get some result, get a point in there, but, if we get the 3 points, I think that's massive going into before the break. But I don't know. There's still a lot of things to be questioned for for the team, but I think they're still capable enough to get some sort of result.
I mean, yeah, obviously set pieces too. We need to talk about that too. Like we tied St. Louis 3-3 last time. And in my opinion, that's one of the most frustrating results of the season. Not because like it's a loss, but like we should have definitely won that game. Like we should have scored multiple goals. We should have put that game away within 2 goals at some point. And the fact that we let 2 points slip at home, I think was definitely disappointing. So that's kind of why also I'm going into this game saying I really want to win it is because we already let points slip versus St. Louis this year when we should have. So this is now kind of the time like, all right, guys, we got to make up those points we lost earlier in the year. And like, to be honest though, like they scored 2 goals off set pieces. So you limit those a little bit. You do a little bit better job there. And you still, get guys in behind. Like, also important to note, Gabriel Peck didn't play versus St. Louis last time. I think he was either on the bench or he might have been gone. I'm not sure, but I know he didn't really play that much versus them, so that could be another weapon too. And they still have the same playing style, relatively similar to what we saw then. So if we just limit the set pieces, still create opportunities, I feel like, the game could be there for us to take.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And in terms of Gabriel Peck, I think that was the week where he got married, if I recall. So it might have been that week where he got married and he wasn't even in the country. So that was probably that one. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree with that as well. It's like last time we probably should have won that game against St. Louis, but in terms of set pieces, that kind of messed us up for that game. And you know what? St. Louis is probably looking at that, that as well. I mean, shoot, we lost to Seattle because of set pieces, right? So St. Louis is looking at us and saying like, hey, they still got that problem. We can still attack them that way, no matter how we can. So it's just like if we get a good position off a set piece, then we can kill them right there. So it's just like I think St. Louis is also looking at that, and we got to do a better job in terms of those set pieces and how the defense reacts to that. But still though, I think this team is capable of winning, and I think if you get a win against St. Louis, it's going to be massive as well. So it's just like I don't know, like getting 3 points on the road is always going to be a good thing, and if we get them, that's going to be good, especially going in, with another week break before we take on LAFC. Afterwards, but still though, we got to get some points on this one against St. Louis, and I think I think anything if we lose in this one, I think it's going to be a bit disappointing. But for sure, I think we got to go, and it's still though it's the last part of the season, so I guess we got to kind of have to go all out in some sort of respect, some sort of sense, right? We got to find our shape, we got to find our form. So if we get a win on the road, that's going to help us, as well, in form going into the into the end of the season. Either. Any other points you want to say about St. Louis, or or should we, or do you just have any other points?
Yeah, hopefully we create a lot of chances again for sure. Get our guys in behind, be clinical, also defend well, and if we do those things, I think we have a good shot. But hopefully those things can come into place for us.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully everything goes into place for us. Still going to be a difficult game. It's difficult, I think, just for in general for the viewer. Because the fact that this game is at 11:30, it's like, goddamn. Like I do not like early game time starts, but hey, you know what? We got to wake up for this one, and again, 11:30 isn't too bad, but it's just like still, it's a lot earlier than normal than when we watch games. So, but still though, yeah, hopefully everything goes well in this one. Hopefully we get a good result against St. Louis. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for the episode. Can't thank you all enough for watching and listening. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me at Insider Galaxy on Instagram, on X. Go follow the Galaxy Central on Instagram. And anything else you want to say to the listeners before we go?
Hopefully we pick up the win.
Yeah, hopefully we do. Hopefully we get that win this Saturday against St. Louis. So yeah, let's just hope. Like we always say, we can only hope for the best, right? So yeah, let's just hope for the best. And yeah, can't thank you guys enough. Be a friend, tell a friend about the podcast, whenever you're listening to the podcast. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, rest of your night. And yeah, let's go get it, guys. Thank you all. And peace up.
7 words.